I'm Christy Oliver, the Professional Development Manager at Davis Publications. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon for our second session specifically for supervisors. We are thrilled to have NAEA Supervision and Administration leaders, Lorinda Rice and Lisa Stuart Whitehead with us. They will once again be facilitating a conversation surrounding the current issues supervisors are facing, specifically as it relates to the start of the school year while in a pandemic. A few quick housekeeping things before we get started. We would love for you to ask questions throughout our time together. The best way to do that is to type your questions in the chat box or use the Q&A button. Both can be found at the bottom of your screen. We'll be monitoring these throughout the session, and we'll get to as many questions as we can during our time together. In the last portion of the session, we'll have some time for you to raise your hand and verbally contribute to the conversation. In the meantime, if you could keep yourselves muted, that would be really helpful. Also, just a reminder that we are recording this session, and after we finish today, a link to the video will be emailed to you and will be available for viewing at davisart.com/free resources for anyone who might like to watch. It is my pleasure to introduce our two speakers today. Lorinda Rice is the Curriculum Specialist for Visual Art at Lincoln Public Schools in Lincoln, Nebraska, and serves 95 K-12 art educators. She has earned a BFA and a MS in Education and Art Education from Northwest Missouri State University and a Master's in Education Administration from Concordia University in Nebraska. Her career has included graphic design work for Bailey Lowerman and Associates, high school art educator in Columbus Public Schools, and elementary art specialist with the Lincoln Public Schools. In her 22 years in art education, Rice serves as a National Art Education Association Supervision and Administration Division Director and has also served as the Western Region Representative for the NAEA Elementary Division. NAEA Professional Research and Learning Supervisor and Administration Representative, NAEA Delegates Assembly, Nebraska Art Teacher Association Co-President, Youth Art Month Chairperson. Lorinda served on the Nebraska Fine Art Standards team and was the recipient of the NAEA Elementary Art Educator of the Year and Supervisor of the Year awards. She has presented at museums, state and national conferences on various topics, including the importance of arts education for creative problem solvers of the future and arts integration. She is a practicing artist with studio space at the Burkholder. She lives in Lincoln, Nebraska with her husband and son. Lisa Stuart Whitehead taught elementary art for 9 years and was the content specialist for art, theater, and dance for Montgomery County Public Schools in Rockville, Maryland for 7 years. Currently, she is the visual arts supervisor for Prince George's County Public Schools in Maryland, where she supervises over 276 pre-K-12 art teachers. Prince George's County is a pioneer in arts integration with 90 schools and growing. Lisa received a Bachelor's of Science in Art Education from the University of Maryland in College Park, a Master of Arts in Education from the Maryland Institute College of Art in Baltimore, Maryland, and her certificate in Supervision and Administration from the University of Maryland in College Park. This fall, Lisa will start her doctorate in Educational Leadership at the University of Maryland. Lisa has co-authored 2 books, Using Art to Teach Reading Comprehension Strategies and Using Art to Teach Writing Traits, along with other articles in School Arts Magazine. Lisa has traveled extensively throughout the world and in 2006 was awarded a Japan Fulbright Scholarship. In 2020, Lisa received the National Supervision and Administration Award and the Marion Quinn Dix Leadership Award from the National Art Education Association. She has presented at museums, as well as numerous state and national conferences on various topics concerning literacy, curriculum, assessment, and instruction. She is a past NAEA board member and is currently the Supervision and Administration Division Representative on the NAEA Research Commission. She loves to find ways for children to use art to deepen their understanding of other subjects and believes that all children can access the same level of understanding in different ways. Using art is one such way. Lisa lives in Maryland with her husband, Christopher, and her 2 children. In this session, the presenters will discuss their unique situations acting as district supervisors. What I want to stress here is that Lorinda and Lisa represent both sides of the spectrum, one starting school face-to-face as early as next week, and the other in a district that has decided to be fully remote through January. I will let them explain in greater detail, but I wanted to stress that we realize each situation is different and hope to share some positive strategies and support you all today. In order for us to have the most productive session possible, we ask that everyone remain muted for the time being. The session is intended to provide a forum for all of your thoughts to be heard. While Lorinda and Lisa are presenting, we ask that you use the chat box and the Q&A buttons for the first part of the session. And then we'll open it up for verbal discussion using the raise hand function. When we get to that time, we'll be calling on people to speak. That will allow as many of you, it will allow us to get to as many of you as possible and keep things nice and organized. Okay, so just a quick reminder to keep yourself muted, and I'll turn it over to Lorinda and Lisa.
Thanks, Christy. It's great to be here. I'm going to start out today just to give you a little overview of Lincoln Public Schools. We are an urban and suburban district. I have 98 art teachers with 42,000 students. Our city is an immigration relocation city. We serve over 70 languages in our city in our EL department, which means that my teachers are adapting and adopting and creating curriculum to support all learners. Lisa?
Oh, there we go. So Prince George's County is in Maryland. We're literally right next to Washington, D.C. In fact, on this map, you see a cutout missing triangle. That is the diamond that is Washington, D.C. And you can see that most of our schools kind of center around that space. We have 206 schools. I supervise 276 art teachers and growing. We have urban, suburban, and rural. You'll see down there in the very bottom of District 9, that is our rural area. And we have 130,000 students. We're predominantly African American and Hispanic.
All right, so now let's get into some nitty gritty. The plan for 2020-2021 for Lincoln Public Schools is that we are starting with students on August 12th. Our art teachers and all teachers started today in meetings and prep time. We are reopening with a document that is over 600 pages long and includes all of the different areas of our district, including special education, all of the different fine arts organizations, and safety and concerns for the public. We are a one-to-one district, so all of our students have Chromebooks. This will be the first year that our elementary students will be taking those home, and the first year that our kindergarten students will be taking those home. In the high schools, because our high schools are overpopulated right now, we're in the process of building 2 new high schools. We will have a 50-50 learning time, so 50% of our students will come on part of the days, so Monday through Wednesday for 1 week, and then the other 50% will be remotely in the classroom, and then they'll flip. And so then Thursday, Friday, those students will attend school, and the next week they will have their Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It's very complicated and complex, and is taking a lot of energy and thinking to get through some ideas for that. In our K through 8 students will be all in person 100% of the time. Families do have choices though. A student can attend remotely if that family chooses to. And so our teachers are going to be managing remote students and in-person students. And so this summer, a lot of the work that we've been doing is supporting them in thinking about ways to make that happen. On the elementary level, we are creating a whole child art kit or kit for learning, and that will include information and supplies from the regular classroom and a few from the art room. On the secondary level, we're creating simple basic art supplies from the art room, and we're encouraging our students to think outside of the box using found materials if they're working from home.
Okay, and Prince George's plan, and just to give a little history, Prince George's County actually had the highest COVID count in Maryland. So we are starting on August 31st with fully virtual until January of 2021. Our CEO on December 1st will be making a decision about what we'll be doing second semester. She has said that we will be providing art kits to send home. So our schools right now are currently inventorying what they have in their schools and then looking to see what can we order to make sure that we have enough materials to send home to students. We also have a reopening plan. It's 150 pages. It gets updated every Friday. So don't get used to what it says currently because it may change. We are in the process of moving all of our students one-to-one. In the spring, we were able to give out Chromebooks, one per family. Now we are moving our students one-to-one with Chromebooks, except for pre-K and K are getting iPads. So our plan is to start out the school year with one-to-one technology. Teachers are given a choice whether they want to teach from their home or in their classrooms with all of their materials and stuff.
Nice. So a couple things that we've been working on here to help students and teachers with this blended learning opportunity is we've been taking teachers through some training this summer of different technology needs. We've also been supporting them with some culturally responsive teaching and learning to support our social and emotional learning components. One of the biggest things for us is that this year is all about relationship. We need our students in the classroom as well as across the city who are connecting via the web to see this space as a place where we can connect to each other, share ideas, and get support. And we've been doing that through the work of Zaretta Hammond and some of the other writers of culturally responsive teaching. And our teachers are really excited about it. We've really thought about sentence structures and sentence frames to support that communication with students and being able to put that into a digital journal so that students and teachers can talk to each other. This year, we are going with district-wide themes. We are going with 3 themes. The first one is interconnections. The second one is resiliency. And the third one is the theme of home. And those are very concept-based themes that we're asking our students to think about in an open-ended way that will allow them to use their own personal experiences to tell their visual story. We are tying those with a variety of diverse artists that are representing of all of our students here in Lincoln, Nebraska. And these will have a really contemporary art practice, making opportunity for our teachers and students to think about what ways might they use materials from a different place or space and reuse them in a new way. Cyrus, I'm trying to remember his last name right now, is one of the artists that we're presenting to our teachers and our students. Cyrus has been using junk for a number of years, looking at the idea of the lenses of glasses and looking at the world in a new way. And so we are asking our students to do that also, and our teachers. We're really looking forward to seeing what they will come up with in this opportunity.
Okay, so in Prince George's County, we are really rethinking our art supplies and what is really essential at home. We are working on kits, as I stated earlier. What do they need for that first month that they already have in the school? Because we are now going to order supplies, and guess what? Watercolor is the new hand sanitizer. So we're having a lot of trouble finding those resources and getting all of our orders filled so that we can start school with a nice kit of supplies. So it looks like we're going to have to send home some things right in the beginning and then possibly have them come back to pick up supplies in October when everything is in stock, hopefully. So another thing we were asked to do was in June, we were asked to create bridge documents that bridges fourth quarter with first quarter. And unlike math, which potentially those leaders could say, okay, our 5th graders missed learning about this part of math, fractions maybe, so we can teach that the first start of 6th grade. Art is cyclical, and so therefore our concepts and skills there wasn't any specific thing that I could have put in our first quarter documents that they really missed in 4th quarter, because we end up teaching those ideas over and over again. So instead, I chose that for the first 3 weeks of school, we would really focus in visual art on social and emotional learning. And a concept that we've been talking about here in Maryland is art in a safe space, moving into art in a brave space. And so all of my students from kindergarten, even pre-K if they feel it's appropriate, all the way through 12th grade, will be having these conversations for the first 3 weeks of school, where their teachers really listen to them and see where they're at and how this is going. And how can we create those safe spaces in the classroom as we learn students who maybe we've never met before. And the new way of meeting them is through this screen. So how can we create those safe spaces in our classroom? And then how can we move those safe spaces into brave spaces? And really talking about what's been going on in our country, in our world, and how can we utilize art to be advocates and activists in that realm. We're really looking at what are some of our tech spaces set up at home, because now every teacher is either going to teach from their classroom or from their house. And so what does a teaching space look like at home? And so I have teachers that have actually been doing some teaching over the summer for some summer programs that we have, that we've been learning a lot through those about how to teach online and effective ways to teach online. So they're taking pictures of what their new teaching space looks like. And we're going to show that at our back to school training, which this year I get 2 days. Before I've only had 1, but this year I get 2. So I'm really excited about that. I'm asking my teachers to contribute to the professional development that'll be provided for those 2 days. Some ideas that I currently have that we'll be putting together is one, we have all the e-textbooks, thankfully, from Davis. And so now is a really great time for our teachers and our students to really get engaged with those textbooks that they can log in and access. I have teachers preparing best practices when teaching online. So some of those teachers who've been teaching over the summer. I talked to a teacher today who had 25 high schoolers in a class for a summer technology workshop. And one of the things she said was the students felt like they were being talked at too much. And so how can we make sure that those lessons are engaging and that the teacher just isn't presenting at them for 50 minutes? And that there's a lot more interaction and there's a lot more students being able to communicate with each other and share just like they would if they were in the classroom. So what are some ways that we can do that in this virtual world? Cultural competency is another presentation that we'll be giving. Creating online sketchbooks. Sketchbooks are expensive. And so I learned that I put that on my list and principals came back to me with like, what? I can't afford a $5 sketchbook per child for 130,000 students. So how can we get creative with either making our own sketchbooks, teaching our students how to make sketchbooks? What are some ways that we could create an online sketchbook where maybe they take images and then insert it into a PowerPoint so that they can keep that kind of as a digital sketchbook? Another thing we're going to do for that back to school meeting is I'm going to challenge my teachers to come up with a field trip that they will insert into their first semester of teaching. Because now is the opportunity, like, let's take all our kids to Paris, right? So let's find a virtual field trip and figure out how to incorporate that into our instruction. Now is the time for us to really get out worldwide and see what are some of these museums offering and how can we incorporate a field trip into our instruction. And then another presentation is Adobe Spark. If you haven't had an opportunity to work with Adobe Spark, now is a really great time. It is free. It is accessible on any device because it's cloud-based. And kids can make pages, posts, websites, videos. And it's a really great way for students to show what they know in a digital way. It isn't, let's fill out this worksheet, scan it, and put it back in our Google Classroom to our teacher. So those are some ideas that we're coming up with for our back to school trainings.
Awesome, sounds great. Yeah, one of the things that I'm sure all of us are noticing is that fact that access to materials is one of the biggest challenges that we're facing as we move forward. But we've created a list of different anxieties or different challenges that we're seeing. And one of those right now in Lincoln, Nebraska and the state of Nebraska is the anxiety of going back into the classroom. And we're really talking a lot about safety of materials and what we need to do to make sure that our students and our staff are safe. And so we've come up with documents through the CDC and through our local health department. We have cleaning regimens that we're asking teachers to work with. We're asking teachers not to share supplies, so each student will have a baggie with different materials inside of it, including a pencil, a small sketchbook, but they also will have those digital tools also, to help with that. If a student or teachers are using materials that will be used by another group of teachers, if it's a non-porous item, we're asking our teachers to wash it in soap and water, and then we have a sanitization process where the teacher and students will be spraying down those items and wiping them down before we can use them again. If it's a porous item, a book, maybe it is things like pastels, where we have to put those into tubs and keep them away from other people for 72 hours. So one of the challenges we're hearing and seeing here is that in art classrooms, we would share pastels and watercolor paints or brayers across students in the regular classroom, and we can't do that anymore. So we're really thinking outside of the box and what we're going to be using to make items and what we want to create with. Lisa, do you have any, because you're staying at home right now, there may not be those supply issues, but are there other anxieties that your teachers are dealing with?
I think it's about losing their students. I think it's about making sure that they all show up. I think it's about keeping them engaged. I think it's about what to do when their screen is blank. Where did they go? The same high school teacher today said to me, well, the student just got up and walked away. You know, so it's like, it's coming up with those protocols, those norms, those rules of the class that they're having to rethink how to control the situation when they don't actually have them in their possession. You know what I mean? Like they're not in their classroom. So how to handle that when they're all in their own homes, I think is some of their anxiety.
Right. We've been working a lot on some ways to help keep students actively engaged. And if you're dealing with a technology issue, as we've started to roll this out, doing training for teachers and new teachers, every once in a while you have a technology issue. And so that digital sketchbook has become the way for us to say, have your students go here with this prompt while you deal with that technical issue. That's one of our many things, but just like you said earlier, we're going to be coming up with new ideas, and we are really focusing on teamwork and sharing ideas across the district with all 98 teachers to say, if this one doesn't work, try some of these other ideas.
I think technology here and the technology teacher gap, I think in the spring, that was really huge. I think we have, you know, shortened that gap. It's not great. We still have a lot to do. There's still a lot to learn. And so I think that is something that we're going to continue to do is to shorten that technology teacher gap. Yeah. And then mentors we put on here, providing mentors, because as I said this at our last meeting, all of our teachers are now like brand new teachers, right? And so the teachers who have been teaching for 25, 30 years are now all of a sudden a brand new teacher. And so how can we strengthen our mentorship programs within our school systems to make sure that everyone is getting that support?
Yeah, that's a really good, and that's one of the things that we're thinking about. Those new teachers who have some of those technology skills, are sharing their ideas with some of our teachers who were going through the traditional methods of teaching, and then vice versa. We are sharing ideas across generations on ways to keep kids engaged and to connect to them and build those relationships. So that mentorship or that teamwork idea is really important as we move through this year. And just that idea of supporting each other, the resiliency of teaching this year is going to be really tough. We're asking our teachers to go a lot slower with students and to brainstorm creative processes and ideas, as well as then they're making pieces that will happen.
Yeah, I think that, and again, we did say this at our last presentation, but we've really had to move away from the let's all make the same type of artwork, because we could ensure that those were the materials that we all had. Not that that was the greatest way to do it, and we were trying to get teachers to move away from that anyway, but now we're all kind of really forced in this new direction and way of really making sure that our students have voice and choice in their lessons. And so it's very exciting, I think.
It really is. I'm excited to see what they come up with. I think that some of the other things that we have on the list here, school systems and technology teams are better prepared. I know that even today we were getting new information, just like you said, the document is constantly changing, and we're going to ask teachers to come back to it daily to see what those updates are. But we are integrating a lot of our different systems with different apps and tools that are out there so that they are simplified through our LMS program. And that hopefully will help both families and teachers be able to get on and find the things that they need.
Yeah, I think also just having the break of the summer where we were able to really like sit down and think this, because the spring it was like we had to turn on a dime, we weren't ready.
Yeah.
So now we've actually had the summer to get prepared. Is it perfect? No. Do we have more work to do? Absolutely.
Right.
But we've had more time to really sit and think about what is best and how are we going to make sure we all go one-to-one.
Right. A couple of those vast array of resources that are available. We are using Padlet. We're using the Google Suite and Google Slides. We are using Spark. We are using the technology of interactive work with students in MindMup and creating their connections and associations on those different themes. And so we're seeing a lot of different opportunities for different Chromebook-based, Android-based apps that students can use.
And then the last one, it was something that, you know, you and I both put in here, that how are we as supervisors now going to be connecting and providing support? And so I will be, and my resource teacher will be popping into classrooms. I was saying that she often can only get to maybe 2 or 3 schools in a day because she spends a lot of time in her car driving from school to school. Well, now in this virtual model, she can pop back in and out of classes umpteen times a day, you know, so she can spend 5 minutes in this class and then check back in later to see how the conclusion is going, or, you know, how any of that. So it's, I did that over the summer for some of the summer programs. I was able to just pop back and forth in between classes. I could be on 3 different classes at a time and kind of see how they were going. And then that weekly support that now all of our teachers are accustomed to receiving from us. I think they're like, okay, when are we going to start those weekly meetings? They found them very helpful. And so we'll continue to offer those.
Yeah, us too. And I really was excited to hear my teachers say, I want to come back together and meet weekly so that we can share ideas and connect with each other. And then our PLCs this year will all be about different ways of supporting each other through this pandemic and teaching and learning this year. There is no data taking, there's nothing except sharing ideas, resources, and different ideas.
All right, I think we have one more slide.
I think so too. So one of the big things is hoping for a time to reconnect and share, and that can be difficult, right? As you have across the district of a large district, it may not look the same for professional learning. It may be online, and those opportunities to share will be few and far between. We are creating, and what we have in our district is called a LibGuide, where teachers are posting different information to share their ideas, but then we're also doing those Zoom meetings to reconnect throughout the year.
Yeah, just you know, a few other ideas here, but I'm going to touch on the last one about social and emotional. Again, this is the direction we're going for the first few weeks of school, and throughout the entire school year. Actually, we have it built into our daily plan, where counselors will be checking in with groups of students at a time for some of that social and emotional help and support. So I think that's something that's never really been a huge focus before. So I'm really excited to see how that goes and what that does for our students.
Yeah, awesome. And ours for that is we are working with our healthy lifestyles department, and we are connecting what we're doing in our themes to what they're doing. And then we are also connecting all of our themes with our counselors so they understand where we're at and what we're asking students to do. And all of our themes go cross-curricular. We're having connections to science. We're having connections to social studies. And so we're really excited about those cross-curricular connections. Our elementary art teachers are art on a cart this year, so they'll be traveling to the classroom so that elementary students can stay in a cohort. And that is going to be an important piece because our classroom teachers will be there and they'll get to see how we connect and go deeper into that learning.
Yeah, that'll be great. That'll be really cool. Do we have one more slide or is that it?
Trying to remember. Nope.
Okay, great. So we can go ahead and answer. There's two questions in the chat already. One is from Gino about specific programs for developing digital sketchbooks. And Gino, one of my teachers, is working on this and she's just using Google Slides.
Yep. We're doing that and Spark. So both of those are really great spaces. What we've done is we've created a template to help teachers that they can adapt and give them an opportunity to see different prompts, different ways of organizing, and support systems for a student who, if they get a blank slide, may not be able to have the understanding to add to it. So we're really giving them also a process to say, here's some different things that you might want to consider.
Great. And then, yeah, teachers being observed via Zoom. So when I go in, I show up no mic, no video, okay? Because that's the first thing. I want to make sure that I am not disturbing what is happening. So I make sure mic and video are turned off before I actually enter into the classroom. We use Charlotte Danielson, and I actually just spoke to someone in the office that is in charge of teacher evaluation. And he was telling me that we have to really, they had to really go in and kind of rethink Charlotte Danielson because some of it still applies, some of it does not. And so instead of going down to the individual component level of Danielson, we're going up to the larger actual domain. And so we're looking at how is the teacher performing at that domain, and they're creating a whole new set of look-fors for online learning and what is expected of teachers in that, which he told me today were going to be more like open-ended questions, things that we would be asking teachers to consider as they're planning. So that'll be interesting too. Stay tuned.
No kidding. Yeah, I think that for us, we are still doing observations, but we are also looking at those larger components. We're not going to drill down into different things. What we really want to do is support teachers and their emotional well-being and say, here's some things that you might go to help yourself or help your students and make that work. It's going to be a tough year, and we want them to know that they are doing all that they can, and we appreciate that and are really looking for ways to support them.
So what we'd like you to do at this time is if you want to keep putting questions in the chat, you can. We can pop back and forth between that. But now is the time for you to just use the raise hand button. We'll call on you. Anything you want to add, share. If you want to share what you're doing, if you have any great ideas that you'd like to share, like this is really, we've got about 20 minutes really to just open it up for a group discussion. So if you just use the little raise hand feature, which if you click on, how's that go, Christy? Participants?
Yep.
Yes.
The participants button at the bottom, then you can raise your hand.
James Reese, good to have you here. Thanks for joining us. I hope that your year will be wonderful.
It looks like Gino has his hand raised. Gino, if you'd like to speak, you can unmute yourself.
I'm a good doobie student, I guess. I raised my hand first.
Hi, Gino.
Hey, how's it going, Lisa? Hey, Christy. Lorinda, I am kind of curious. Lorinda, you mentioned an LMS system. I'm sure you're probably using Schoology or Canvas or maybe another iteration.
Not yet.
But one of the things that we've been bantering around here, we're utilizing Canvas, is trying to define or generate some benchmarks in terms of teacher instruction, especially at the secondary level, to kind of figure out what, or to provide guidance, or at least kind of just what they should be providing students in a consistent fashion. I think one of the concerns from community has been, as we entered into distance learning in the spring, you know, there were various iterations that came out of that from various teachers and schools, especially working within a large district. And so generating some consistency for the community has been one of the feedback loops that we've heard a great deal. And so I'm curious, what, if anything, are you looking to provide your teachers moving forward in terms of any benchmarks or training or guidance, I guess it's a very open-ended umbrella term, to them as you move into the new year?
Yeah, that's a great question, Gino, and one that we've grappled with here also. One of the things that I did was I wrote an open letter to the city of Lincoln and let them know that our courses are slightly different this year, and that our teachers are teaching to the creative process. They're going to be talking to students about where ideas come from and how different artists have used unique materials, because we won't be able to teach those benchmark skills of value and all of those different components of photography, because we have shared cameras and that's not an option this year. And so we're really looking for those benchmarks to be, where do you come up with ideas? How can you record your process of coming up with that idea? And then following a trail. So if you're working in the idea of interconnections, maybe you start out with the theme of networks and who's in your network, what types of networks do you have, and where are your networks taking you? And what do you notice about your networks as compared to asking someone in your family who is older, and the types of connections that they had as young adults or even now, and comparing and contrasting those. So we want students to take those ideas, grapple with them, and come up with a visual story to tell their learning in that, or their understanding. And so our understanding goals are really open and broad. Our benchmarks are all about the creative process and showing where they came up with those ideas, where they researched them from, and then sharing that process. So we don't really have any kind of specifics for this year.
That would be something that would be so great if a team of us got together and hashed out. You know, like everyone is just rethinking everything that they've ever known and taught about art education. Like, what is really important, you know, when they leave us now, when they go off as graduating seniors, what do we want to make sure that they really have and that they get out of this moment?
Right. Another thing that we're doing is we looked to the standards and the larger concept of connecting and responding.
Yes.
So as a student gets done with their work, their digital journal should tell that story, but we're also inviting them to create a little video and tell us what it is that they've learned and what was inspiring about this, or what the setbacks were as artists and creative thinkers, and how they overcame that, whether it was reaching out to other students, their peers, whether it was something they found online from an artist on a YouTube video, whatever those might be.
So Lorinda, you just inspired me to write this down. I need a back to school session called The Other Standards.
Yes.
Because it's not just about creating.
Right.
There are 3 other standards.
That's right. Yeah. And really, this allows us an opportunity to show students those in a different way. I mean, so when you talk about going out and doing a virtual field trip, that's exactly what we're doing. We're just opening it up to let our students kind of be directed in some, but then open-ended so that they can find their own. I'm working with the local museums here in Lincoln, Nebraska, and they're creating virtual field trips that we used to take our students on. We'd pile them in the bus and we'd take them through the Sheldon Art Museum or the International Quilt Museum. That can't happen this year. So those agencies are working with me and with some money from the federal government to create little videos that our teachers will be sharing with students, and then they get to respond to those. So our students will have a moment to say, during this field trip, these were the 3 things that I noticed, and this is how it connects to me.
Erica, hi Erica, asked, what would you suggest we ask for if in our county we have not been able to get art kits yet and we are teaching virtually or physically and can't share supplies? What would you advocate for? Do you mean in terms of like an actual per pupil budget, or the actual supplies? You can unmute.
Yeah, I was just asking just like basic essentials. Like I know that in Montgomery County, which neighbors Lisa's county, they haven't really given us any information on supplies, and we have about 2 more weeks until we start, or 3 more weeks. And I'm just curious what your perception, both of your perceptions are on what do you think is essential for these kids to have if there's not access, or access to watercolor paints. What are your thoughts?
So we have an entire memo coming out about supplies, probably any day now. I have literally teachers and principals emailing me like daily, like, what should I order? What should I order? So I think I said this before, but for the first month, I'm looking to see what does the school already have, because those supplies aren't going to be in yet. So I'm asking them to pull together white paper, construction paper, and then materials to have each student make a sketchbook. They're also having parents purchase back to school supplies like they normally would, but they've rethought those. And so in the back to school supply list at every grade level is a bottle of glue, colored pencils, crayons and markers, and scissors. So if they have those 5 things in their back to school supply, plus they get paper, sketchbook, construction paper, that's going to get us through the first month of school, no problem. Then I'm having them order watercolors, oil pastels, some crafting types of supplies at the younger grades. I don't know, I have a whole list. So Erica, if you want, you can email me. I think you know my email. And I will just send you my list. And I have it like sectioned off by elementary, and then all the X's for what you need in elementary, what you need in middle school, what you need in high school. So I'd be happy to share that.
Yeah. So here in Lincoln, Nebraska, we are doing things a little bit differently just because we don't have a large budget. And so we are asking teachers to look in their supply closets. We've gotten donations of ink pens from different businesses around the city to support putting those into some of our schools that don't have a lot of extra funds. They are getting a paper sketchbook that's small and handmade by the teachers and paras and anybody else in the building that will support that. We are also looking for just a regular pencil to be in that. Hopefully later on, we'll be able to, as our orders come in, we'll have glue sticks available. We're asking teachers to put in construction paper and even pieces of magazine paper so that we're giving our students some options if they don't have a magazine at home. And then the other piece for us is we've created how to make a studio at home SlideShare. And we've shown them, all of our students, how to create different types of brushes and different materials that you can use at home to create paint, whether it's tea, whether it's coffee, whether it's Kool-Aid, the Kool-Aid pack that you had at home. We are giving them the options of using found materials in new ways. So if you've got a cereal box, what could you do with that cereal box? We've given them videos and slide shares that show different ways to connect items if you don't have tape, if you don't have a stapler, if you don't have glue. And we're building that as those resources come in from our teachers to share out with our students. And that's really a big part of what we're talking to students about. As you move out of your K-12 education and you are interested in visual art making, what are the ways that you can continue this beyond that school classroom, that art room studio? And what does your studio look like? Is it in a box that you pack up and put in the corner of your room? Is it a special designated spot that you have in a part of your house? Or is it a suitcase that you'll take with you once you leave home and go on your way into the world? And so this is a really wonderful time for us to say, no matter where you are and what you have, we want you to keep creating and finding new ways to think about art.
I love that. That's awesome. What other questions? Gino says, would you be able to talk through about some ways that you're considering for the coming year honoring or exhibiting student work at district level beyond websites and online galleries? That's a tough one, Gina.
It is. Yeah, those are the two ways that I'm doing it. When we shut down, we were supposed to have a secondary district art show and an elementary district art show. We had all of the images from elementary. I've had framed those and they're actually up here in the district office right now. We took photographs of those and put them on the website so families can enjoy them. I still don't know what I'm going to do with that secondary district art show because the work that's here framed right now is supposed to go out into the city to all those businesses that people go to. So I'm at a conundrum. So does anyone else out there have ideas that we could share and come up with?
Yeah, I'll just say that I have already made the decision to put all of my exhibits online for this entire school year. I have a 3D exhibit online, I have a senior show online, and my countywide exhibit. It's too much. Even if we do go back in second semester, the logistics of trying to plan some of that is we got other things to worry about. So I'm going to move all those online for this school year. So I'm interested to hear what else.
Right, and that brings up another question. So like for our IB students who need to exhibit somewhere, has anyone thought of ideas for that? Because we're still trying to grapple with that, or even some of our AP exhibits that we ask students to do.
Oh good, they're as stuck as we are.
So as we come up with ideas, let's get those on the NAEA Collaborate so that we can continue to have this conversation and share those. Because some teacher out there somewhere is going to come up with a really genius idea.
Lorinda, maybe we can just go ahead and post that as a question.
Yeah.
And see what we get. That'd be great.
So this is Gino. Sorry, I don't know if I can speak or not. I don't know how formal this is. But I posed the question because last year, Lisa, as you know, like I put together a district website for our district that was well received. And then also, that honored, because we too, Lorinda, have a senior show annually. And so that was kind of cut short with the March closure of school. And so that was really highly regarded district-wide. I also, because I oversee dance and theater on top of visual arts for the district, we had multiple productions that were canceled and end-of-year dance showcases. And so I ended up starting another website that was basically showcasing art, dance, theater, and music student work that was generated during the time of distance learning, basically. And so those both were really well received, but I was just trying to think outside of web-based showcases, I guess, which somewhat feel cold to me a little bit. One of our teachers held a kind of NAHS end-of-year gallery Zoom kind of presentation, which garnered like 250 people that evening from one of the high schools. And it was really great. And I thought that was kind of an interesting way. So it mixed kind of like a presentation format along with kind of like an online gallery that was just web-based. And they kind of mixed the two together, which made it a little bit more personal. And they were allowed to kind of honor individual graduating seniors in that way. That I thought was really innovative. But I was just kind of posing the question because I know there are a lot of us that are struggling with, you know, the traditional formats and ways that we also partner with businesses like you were talking about. We have like 32 exhibitions a year. And so half of those are community partnership driven. And so we're just kind of, we've shelved all our plans up until we return and kind of can access those buildings and spaces and can honor students in the traditional way we typically do. I think it's an important thing because it drives a lot of the community building piece that we really honor in the arts. And since I oversee dance and theater, it's a huge drive with all of the performance driven disciplines. So just posing that question.
Yeah, I like the idea of, especially in IB, they have a component where they have to present their work. And so having them go in that virtual kind of Zoom meeting to share and present, I think is a great idea. Even thinking about the community partners, how can you re-engage them back in this kind of online Zoom way? You could still have them give the, speech that they were going to provide at your open house about the importance of the arts, all of those things, so that they're still advocating for, like I have a university that does a lot of our partnerships. And so looking at how can we re-engage that university, because they always give a speech about rah, rah, go to college, and so like having them kind of come back and still give that speech, I think would be great. So we'll try that.
Yeah, one idea you might consider, and I hadn't thought of it until you were talking, Gino, is some of our gallery spaces here have been doing Facebook Live posts. So if your school has a Facebook PTO page, maybe what we do is ask them if they would host a live event where the student is displaying their work somewhere, and then they can present their work. People from that school community could post thanks or feedback to that student. So that could be one idea that we could think about.
Okay, Sarah said, not sure there's enough time, but there is general ideas for cultivating teacher wellness after a difficult spring and summer. That's a good one. They all need the social and emotional training.
Well, and just taking care of themselves, right? Some of the biggest things that we've been talking about, I've been doing Zoom meetings where I just touch base with teachers, let them come on, share their concerns, ask their questions, and really talking about, sometimes it's okay to get off Facebook or get off Instagram and go take a walk. Go make sure that you're eating a healthy meal, go visit with your family, go enjoy nature, and look outside and look beyond that screen, because you're going to be doing it a lot. We are implementing little weekly notes to teachers to support them as we move through this, helping them as they think about safety concerns or cleaning. And we've got different teachers throughout the district who are sharing their little ideas, and we're going to intersperse those throughout the year. Other ideas?
I thought I saw Louise. Did you have your hand up? If you want to unmute, you can.
Yes, I wrote a note in the chat box. We have done some pop-up shows in the windows of local shops. We're a small town compared to you folks, but that way the student can contact the shop owner, make their show, and so on. So they take a lot of responsibility for having their show on. And then in our school, Facebook, and by word of mouth, we let people know that there's a show in this place, and sometimes there's feedback and sometimes they're not. Our local arts council has also been very helpful.
It's a great idea.
Awesome.
Well, I want to be mindful of everyone's time today, and I just want to take a minute to remind everyone that Davis has lots of great resources for you to access and share with the teachers that you work with. We actually have a really fantastic webinar by Dr. Lisa Kay on teacher self-care, and it's, again, free and available. Definitely check it out and share it with your teachers. It's on a visual notes project that's just really nice. I know it made me feel a lot better, so definitely check that out. If you head over to davisart.com/free resources, you'll be able to sign up for upcoming webinars, access free professional development sessions, read School Arts Magazine online, and view some of our on-demand video lessons. We've also added an equity, diversity, and inclusion support page, and you can always sign up for a 90-day free trial of Davis Digital if that's something you're interested in. We'd also like to invite you all to attend our future webinars. On August 25th, we have Kathy Monahan and Herman Joyner, the authors of Focus on Photography, who will be showcasing some really fantastic contemporary photographers to use in your classrooms. We've also partnered with Art 21 to bring you 4 sessions this school year, all around working with contemporary art. The first webinar is scheduled for September 15th and will feature Davis author and senior education advisor for Art 21, Joe Fusaro, who will be providing insight on using contemporary art to teach with big questions, leading to successful inquiry, inspiration, and idea generation. Definitely join us for that. I'd really like to thank our presenters, Lorinda Rice and Lisa Stuart Whitehead. We really appreciate you sharing your expertise with us and your willingness to help supervisors across the country during this crazy time. And thank you everyone for joining us today. We really love seeing you all. We hope that you stay safe and healthy, and we hope to see you again very soon. We will stop recording at this time, but we'll hang out for a few minutes if you have any other questions or if there's anything else you'd like to chat about.
I also just wanted to thank Davis so much for their partnership. They really have created this space for us to be able to talk and communicate with each other, and that's been so wonderful. We'll continue to do this as long as you all want to. So we can check back in a few months and see if this is something you want to continue to see where everyone is. And I got to give a shout out to my supervisor who is here observing me.
Great.
Thank you, Anita.
Yay.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. It's great to share ideas, and we hope to see you again soon. And good luck with the beginning of the year.
Thank you. Good luck. We got this. We can do it.
Exactly.